you definitely have to adjust and evolve, both on a personal level, on a professional level, and as an organization. I mean, when we started, we were 3 people. Obviously, we had very basic Excel accounting, payroll was very basic, everything was basic. Our internet, as I said before, was home internet. I think with hindsight, we were always aware that bringing in people with the right experience, so hiring for talent, high quality people with the experience and the talent, is critical for us to be able to grow and to be successful. I believe our mindset has always been provide the quality, and if you provide good quality, the growth will come. We also hired a little bit more senior operations people or accountants, so to be able to really set up the systems and the workflow that allowed us to provide good enough service. And I believe that panned out, because you can see we have clients since 10 years with us, and they have grown from 3 people to over 100 people. And not just one, we have a few of those. And so the quality was good enough for them to really keep growing with us.
How big is the team now? Welcome back to TFC Business Show. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and today we are back in studio with an interesting topic, because I think many business owners, anybody worth their salt has already kind of accepted that a distributor workforce, a remote workforce is what you need as a backbone to drive your business to the next level, alongside AI, right? All that good stuff. I think people have accepted that, it's very hard to keep the whole team in Singapore. Like it or not, it's rarely our first choice, but to stay relevant, it's part of it. So we've done multiple episodes around remote work, how does this thing work, and all that good stuff. But today, we got someone that flew in from Manila, right, to come in to share with us how do you really build a team in the Philippines. So yes, introducing Nick. Would you like to introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me in this particular case. And I did fly in, and thank you for making the time to see me. I'm Nicolas. I'm, as you can see, not from the Philippines, but I've been
living... We'll go there later.
Yeah. Perfect. Living there for a long time, and really like it a lot. But living in Asia for quite a while, so 22 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so...
It's been too long. That's why he cannot remember.
It's been long, actually.
Been long.
And that being said, Philippines is actually the country I lived the longest by now, from all the other countries.
How did you end up here?
So when I finished my university, I was studying in Switzerland. So I'm half German, half South American. But when I finished my university, and I decided to do 6 months in Japan to do martial arts and learn Japanese. And then after 6 months, I decided, why don't I stay for longer into an internship to get that into my tool belt and then take that back to Europe and apply to one of those big European companies everybody in my university dreamed of working. But then after starting the internship in a Japanese company, 100% Japanese, I was the only foreigner at that time. I really enjoyed it. I got really great opportunity of working for a Japanese company, but outside of Japan and in the rest of Asia. And it was a great learning experience, a great exposure. And I kept staying, to be very honest. So it kept becoming longer and longer. So it ended up being 18 years with a Japanese company. And because of that work, I was exposed to Southeast Asia in general, including Singapore, but also Philippines in particular. So we started building joint ventures there for shipping. So we brought the first double hull tanker to the Philippines for Chevron, actually. And we used to come here to the Raffles place. So used to come a lot here. And then so I started helping building that business together with the Japanese and the local joint venture partner in the Philippines, working with the Filipinos, fell in love with the country, and then we used to go 4 or 5 times a year. And over time, my bosses in Japan decided, well, you seem to like it so much, and we were starting a second company in the Philippines. Why don't you go and be our representative? And that's how I ended up in the Philippines in 2011, just after the earthquake, which was great timing, actually.
And then how did you come about building your business today?
The current business, so it came actually as a brainchild from honestly trying to convince the Japanese to do more in the Philippines, to set up our own back office or support center in the Philippines. I was trying to convince them to do that, but I was being told that it was not going to work because people didn't speak Japanese, all the reasons they had not to do it. And then in 2014, my best friend and a co-founder of Penbrothers had a startup at that time, had raised Series A, and he needed to scale his team. And we were actually at the beach in Boracay. And I was like, well, I can do that for you. We can do that. We can do it here. I mean, Filipinos are really good, hardworking. If you find the right talent, you can achieve great success. I had done it for the Japanese, with the Filipino teams. And that's where the whole idea came from. He bought into it. I'm very grateful for that. And so we decided to look for a couple of people. I think it was 3 people at the beginning in 2014. It was a software developer, a Photoshop editor. I remember this very clearly. And I think a content writer.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah, because it was really the question: can we find a good Photoshop editor? Is there the talent, and what does it take to find the talent, and how much do we pay them? So it was very specific problems that we had at that time, and then we set up a very small office about the size. Maybe double the size of this, but we had home internet instead of proper internet. We have all those, startup issues that you don't think about, but then you start having. It was great. It was a really interesting journey. But the idea was really, honestly, to be very fair, it was copying what the big global companies were doing in the Philippines already. So around when I was working there for the Japanese, and I continued to work for the Japanese, this was a side hustle. Around us, there is an area or there's 2 business districts in the Philippines, in Makati, in Manila, Makati and BGC. And you have a lot of shared service centers there for the banks, for big corporations. And so I was looking at those buildings with all those shared services and like, well, if JP Morgan can do it, or if Deutsche Bank can do it, or if Maersk can do it, and we're not talking about BPOs and call centers, we're talking about really support services for their global operations. Why can we not do something similar for startups, for SMEs, for companies who by themselves will not go to the Philippines and build their own office because they don't need 100 people, 200 people. They need 1 or 2 or 3 to start with. So it was copying them, but on a smaller scale for a different market, to be very honest. That was the idea. And then the opportunity came because my best friend had exactly that need. Yeah, so it matched very well at that time.
Yeah. How big is the team now at this point?
So we employ about 1,300 people right now.
Wow. Okay. But that's for your clients.
So yeah, about 1,200 for my clients and about 150, a little bit less for ourselves to cater to that. So
that's still quite good. It's pretty cool actually, right?
Yeah.
Starting from an idea 10 years down, gotten into a certain size.
Starting from 3 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So any kind of like management style changes or like how have you kind of developed from there? Before I talk about the Philippine, talent pool, I just want to hear your personal experience.
You definitely have to adjust and evolve, both on a personal level, on a professional level, and as an organization. I mean, when we started, we were 3 people who then hired 3 people, so that makes us 6. Obviously, we had very basic Excel accounting. Payroll was very basic. Everything was basic. Our internet, as I said before, was home internet. So you grow and you scale, but you have to, or in our case, we had to adjust it also to our means, our capabilities. But then once you are, let's say, 10 people, you have to build some processes. And once you're 20 people, you have more processes. So you need to adjust to that. I think one of the main difference is deciding when do you get to the size that you can really hire more senior people, more experienced people that bring that experience into the organization and start embedding that into the processes, into the organization, into the team itself.
Yeah. Great. I mean, that's very candid, but I do want to hear a little bit more on like, when do you start hiring seniors? You kind of enter a space where, okay, you have the money, but there are many ways to play with this money, right?
Sure.
Like why do you hire seniors? And by seniors, we mean people that come in that can set up systems, can run the whole thing, they can operate, they can take over big swaths of the operations, right? So like, at what point do you there is no like science to this, right? It's a little bit of an individual as a founder. There's a little bit of what is happening and all that. So I just kind of want to hear your story. Like, when do you start bringing in some of these senior guys?
I think with hindsight, we were always aware that bringing in people with the right experience, so hiring for talent, for really high quality people with the experience and the talent, is critical for us to be able to grow and to be successful. But then it's a chicken and the egg problem, because obviously you can't afford everything and everybody at the same time. So then I guess what we did, and I'm saying we on purpose because it was my co-founder, another partner of us, and myself, really then discussing this through, and through those conversations, strategizing, okay, what do we prioritize? And I think initially we prioritized less growth and more internal processes and systems, so that we were able to, whatever size we had, be able to provide as good as possible of a service that we could provide. Because we, in this case but also we as a team, I believe our mindset has always been provide the quality. And if you provide good quality, the growth will come. Yeah, instead of going the opposite direction, it's like, let's try to grow, but then you have a complete mess on the ground, and the clients will be angry or unhappy, or the talent won't be good. So we try to invest more into quality. And now in the quality specifically, I think one of the first investments we did was actually into our recruitment team, like find people who were good recruiters, because that's at the end of the day, our engine. It's the people. If we can't find you good people, then you won't be happy. You won't continue doing it. You won't grow with us. So I think quality there. We also hired a little bit more senior operations people or accountants. So to be able to really set up the systems and the workflow that allowed us to provide good enough service. And I believe that panned out, because you can see we have clients since 10 years with us, and they have grown from 3 people to over 100 people. And not just one, we have a few of those. And so what I believe that shows us is that we invested in the right areas, because the quality was good enough for them to really keep growing with us. Otherwise, I think they would have left or done it by themselves. So our strategy was build the systems, improve the service, and then grow with that.
So I assume you hire locals.
Yes.
Right? In your
Not only, but 99% of our people are locals.
Yeah. Great. So that's a great tangent to the Philippine employment market, right? Yeah. So tell me a little bit more, right? So remote working, it's a thing. Most companies are really looking at that, or already have their feet wet in the game, right? Having distributed workforce, so that's already a thing. But why the Philippines? Give me a little bit more of that, and then we can talk a little bit into the details of the nuance and all that. Yeah.
I mean, big picture, the Philippines, and I think this applies to a lot of Southeast Asian countries, but obviously big picture is those are all countries with a large and young population. So obviously it helps that you have a lot of young people. You have, I think, over 1 million graduates coming out of university every year. So that's one of the main advantages. Similar applies to Indonesia and Malaysia, but not so much to Singapore, but to the countries around you. The second point, obviously, Philippines has an advantage of the language, because it used to be an American colony. There's English spoken on a relatively high level compared to other countries. Now I'm speaking globally, obviously, and that helps because unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, English has become the common business language around the world. And I think also what Filipinos are very warm, nice, and kind, and obviously very hardworking. And I'm not saying that other countries are not, but there is an element of Filipino culture which makes them, for a lot of different roles, very good team members and team players, and very easy to integrate to a distributed workforce that I guess appeals to clients or to managers or to people to a degree. Yeah. So I think that's part of the reason why Philippines has grown so much in this industry, and also in the BPO industry, to be very honest. Yeah, in the overall offshoring, outsourcing business model. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then, do you think that it is still the case in a sense, as with all industries, there's a terminal growth rate, right? At some point, the industry is tapped out. Most of the best people are already, with the bigger firms, even the outsourced firms, there is a hierarchy, right? So why am I saying? Because I tried, working with some middle people from the Philippines, and it was a nightmare, right? So not that all of them are bad, but because I work with an agency, so they rotate amongst themselves. So the quality output is not controlled. So you can blame the agency, right? But why am I asking? Because when everybody goes to this one well to drink from, it becomes harder and harder to find good people. right? So is it like, at least that's my worldview. So I want to hear your worldview. Is it a situation where today, if I were to set up a distributor workforce in the Philippines, I can still get like good ROI, good quality people, at the numbers that make sense, or are you yourself seeing that, a lot of these things are also getting bidded up, and when you come to the Philippines, it's not that you can't get talent, but you got to adjust certain metrics, certain numbers, you got to adjust as an employer too.
I think both things are true. I don't think it's like this or like that. I think it's an and. So both things are true. So I think for some roles, the growth of the market and the growth of, I guess, companies like us and also the BPO industry and also the Philippine native industries, it's like not like the local companies are not growing either. And they obviously also need their own workforce and people. So I think that has led to maybe some less availability in certain roles.
Like what?
There's definitely some IT software roles which are not as available anymore, or maybe let's say the competition has become stronger. So you need to pay more salaries, higher salaries. You need to be more competitive to attract them.
Is there a reference on this front?
Really depends on the role, but you can see some roles where I would say in the last 5 years, salaries maybe have come up by 50% or more. It is partially, I guess, what you're saying. Maybe the universities are not churning out enough people in those roles. But at the end of the day, again, Philippines is a very young, very fast-growing population. So I think in terms of talent availability, you have a good amount of talent. Is it the talent that you really want to have at that quality? Maybe not always. And maybe that's there where the mindset then needs to adjust. Okay, so I'm going to hire an accountant in the Philippines, but maybe a mid-level accountant in the Philippines is not exactly the same as a mid-level accountant in Singapore or in England or in the United States, but it's still a good accountant, and with the proper guidance and training, I can build it up. I think the challenge you were talking about with the rotation, that's inherently a challenge that I guess agencies, BPOs, outsourcing have, because their model is, well, I have processes I need to cater to. And obviously there it's about how good can I deliver the process, and it's not so much about the people who are delivering it. Now, obviously, when the people are not delivering it well, then the whole process doesn't work out. Our model is different. Our model is a remote team. It's an extension of your team. So you wouldn't come to us and say like, hey, Nicolas, this is the process I want you to do to me. You would come to us and say like, well, this is the person I want to have to do this process I need to get done. We would find you the right person. This person would be assigned to you and only to you, and would not move around. So that challenge would not happen. But it takes more handholding. It takes more management from a work-wise perspective. So it's a different approach, and I think both have advantages and disadvantages.
I mean, I get it, right? So I mean, in the industry, we just call it like employer on record, right? There's that part of the business, and then you do the headhunting, and then you go from there. So people get it, right? But are there certain kind of skill set pools that you think are a bit underexplored? Like we're all in the space, so we all have a good sense. There was a period of time everybody was mass hiring in Vietnam for talent, and then now it's like kind of harder and harder to find. Like you said, right? 50% increase, right? So the numbers are changing, and everybody's rebalancing the way they look at different talent. So from your experience, knee-deep in the Philippine market, what are some of these talent pools that are underappreciated, at the price point today you think they're very competitive, that you want the audience to know and think about?
So there is a good amount of technical, but also creative jobs that I think are a lot of when I talk to clients or potential clients, they're not even aware that that's, for example, something that the Philippine there is a talent pool for that. So let me give you some examples. So CAD engineering, for example, design, like graphic design, CAD engineering, architectural design, single line diagrams, everything like blueprinting, like things like that, which are both on the side of creativity, but also technical. There is a good amount of people in the Philippines who do that companies are not aware of or never thought about it. So we actually have clients who are architectural companies, including a Singaporean company who is a client of ours, who is an architectural company. We have graphic design clients and so on and so forth. So that's a pool that I don't hear is communicate it much, but there are a lot of people in the Philippines who can do that and do that very well. Also, data analytics, so to be well, and data visualization. There is a good amount of really good people in the Philippines that I don't think companies are yet embracing. Compared to, for example, virtual assistant. I think everybody has heard and tried a Filipino virtual assistant. Yeah. So, and it's quite funny because sometimes I wonder, it's like, how many virtual assistant and executive assistants are there? Because that's inherently not a large pool. So I don't know where they're all coming from.
Yeah. That's why there's a quality problem, right? Because it's always a pool. You got to develop the pool and go. Actually, tell me more. So like. Blueprinting, AutoCAD, all those are like super technical, right? So those things are industry specific, but data visualization, I want to hear a little bit more. Like when you say that, like, oh, there's quite an interesting pool of, capabilities around data visualization. Can you kind of expand on that? Like what pool specifically, and just like what are some of the use cases so that our audience can get a sense?
Well, let's start with I think use case is almost any company of a certain size has a ton of data and they don't even know how to visualize it and what to do with it, or they wish they would visualize it and what to do with it. So, we have hired, for example, for clients of ours, honestly, Power BI or Tableau or other data visualization tools specialists who do nothing but wrangle the data and visualize it in dashboards that already gives information to the management of the client. But then we also have, they or related roles that really know how to go deep into the databases and extract data and wrangle it. I'm not a specialist in this, so I'm not going to start throwing acronyms out here because I might be very wrong. But it is really something that I believe, including ourselves, we have our own data visualization team of 4 people that do nothing but really try to understand all the data we have, from recruitment data to employment data to payroll data to all the data that companies generate nowadays. That there is a real opportunity in finding good people who can help you build the databases, the data lake, whatever you want to call it, extract the data, visualize it. We have a client, for example, out of America. They create dashboards for school districts and schools. Seems to be a huge amount of data, as you can imagine. And so they built, this were 2 people coming from that industry who then built their own company, who have with us, I think, 12 people who do nothing but create dashboards for the school districts and the schools in a certain part of America. Again, when we started talking to them, they're like, really, you have data people? What type of data people? Are they any good? So we started giving them CVs.
Are they any good? Yeah, that's always the question.
And starting having them do interviews. They're like, wow, this is amazing. So they started with 2 people, but now I think they're 12 or 14. So that's a success story of that. And honestly, when I talk to clients or interesting parties, everybody has data and it's a challenge. Yeah. And I think the problem with modern technology and all the SaaS products we are using nowadays is that we have more and more data all the time. Yeah. Another thing we're seeing now, but that's more niche. Companies don't need volume, but we hire, for example, for some clients is CRM administrators, like somebody who really knows how to set it up, how to set up the processes, how to, again, find the data, visualize the data and all that. And companies don't need more than 1 or 2 of those, but they need them, It's again, you're paying quite a large amount of money for a tool, but you have nobody in the organization who can help you really optimize the tool. That's, for example, something that I think is underappreciated, and there are really good people in the Philippines.
Is there a kind of like wage reference to this? Like how much would it cost to hire a CRM administrator?
I think my team is going to kill me, but I would assume somewhere between 80 to 100,000 pesos per month. So we're talking, what is that? Let's say ballpark number $2,000. But if you compare that to what somebody like that would cost you in Europe or in America, it's still significantly less. Or also here in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think for me, it has obviously the salary difference, that arbitrage between salaries is a very important thing. Otherwise, you would hire somebody locally if it's the same cost. But I think doing the remote, and not just Philippines, it could be any remote. The remote teams add more value than just the salary saving. I think there is an element of diversity. There's an element also of bringing in, for example, the capabilities of catering different time zones, of catering also different client pools to a degree. So I think there's more than just the cost saving that you can achieve.
But cost is important.
Cost is
right?
obviously
That's
important.
like the baseline for any management to look at this thing, right?
Yeah, and specifically nowadays, I mean, inflation is still ongoing in a lot of countries. Cost, specifically wage inflation is quite high.
Yeah, actually, do you mind sharing a little bit, like what is, because you're not like operating out of like Bali or somewhere, right? Like you live in the Philippines.
I do.
So like what is the kind of like cost of living there? Because that forms a very good basis to the wage progression that, you know, people that are working would expect, right?
Yeah.
Because as things get more expensive, you also want to control your quality of life, right? So you would ask for more. So is there a little bit of color on like what is the inflation like?
Usually, I would say ballpark, you need to calculate about 5 to 7% increase per year. Now, obviously, that sounds like a lot, but you also need to consider that you're starting from a lower base level. Yeah, but if you're not willing to offer that as a relatively regular adjustment to the team you're building, sooner or later they will leave. Actually, not adjusting the salary many times in the Philippines is used as an indicator, hey, we don't want you to stay. Start looking for another job. It's kind of a passive aggressive, like, you know, yeah, we value you, but obviously not enough to adjust you, to compensate you for inflation. So maybe you start looking for something else without actually expressing it. This maybe not everybody, but this is partially how it's done.
Yeah. No, that's like the nuance, right?
There's a nuance to that. Yeah.
Okay. And then for cost of living, do you have like a personal sense, you know?
Yeah. So honestly,
I'm not economist, so don't worry. Nobody's gonna mark you on that.
The problem with this question is that Manila is a completely different animal than if you go into the countryside. Yeah. So listen, minimum wage makes your life really, really hard. I don't think you can have a decent life with that in Metro Manila. And anything below 50,000 pesos gets tough in Manila, to be honest. Yeah. But you also need to understand, ironically, starting salaries are much, much lower than that for young graduates coming out of university.
I wanted to kind of dig a little bit into that scaling part, like building a team. Yeah. So when clients come in, you know, often they will try, right? Especially for smaller companies, they will try 1 or 2 or 3 people as a start, right? Eventually, they get committed. It's like, oh yeah, okay, there's something here. We can go further. Let's try to scale, right? So as a remote team, you know, tied to the Singapore company, how does that scaling process start to look like, right? Who do I hire next? You know, at what point is there a need for a middle manager? You know, like how do policies change? You just kind of paint us some color based on all the success cases that you've worked with so far.
Yeah, I mean, Singapore is a slightly different approach compared to other cases that we have, let's say, in farther flung areas. So because Singapore is so close to the Philippines, so the way our Singaporean clients have scaled has been slightly different. So usually same thing, they try 1 or 2 people, it works, they like it, then they start looking at, I'm assuming, I'm not always part of it, obviously, they're looking at their org chart and their plans, their growth plans, and say like, okay, what about, can we also do this talent or that talent? What else can we support from, let's say, the Philippines in this particular case? And then they scale, but they manage it very much from here because it's so close. So Filipinos can come to Singapore without a visa, Singaporeans can go there. So it's very easy to manage and to scale this in a way that it's very close. For farther away kind of clients, let's say Australia, Europe, America, we have seen different approaches, including actually maybe going ahead and hiring a more senior person relatively early in the journey, to have that more senior person then be the kind of representative, the local team leader, the local manager on the ground, who can then be that interface. The other thing we have seen with various clients is that at a certain point they start sending an expat over to basically be in the Philippines either for a year or 2 or indefinitely, but to really help then build that up. So different models, different ways, and it's really it really depends on the company, because depending on that company's journey. So some companies scale much faster. Some companies, they don't scale at all for the first few years, and then suddenly they're like, oh, now we need 5 people because they have a new project or a new business line or something happened that allowed them to now do that. So it's, on average, at least in our case, obviously, we can see usually first year is 2 to 3 people. Then the second year usually goes to like 6, 7 people. And then the third year is where not all, but a lot of them we see then going farther, because I guess by that time they have the experience, they have the comfort, and then they most likely start looking at the whole org chart and saying, okay, what else can I do here? Doesn't always happen, but it happens. It's interesting to watch that, actually.
Yeah. Fair. That is very clear in terms of how people are doing it. Good stuff. Maybe we talk a little bit about the cultural nuance.
Yeah,
so all the good stuff, like, okay, so these are some of the problems, these are some of the stuff. And then now let's talk a little bit about this nuance that you don't always read on like guides or on all that, right? Having lived there, having worked with so many people in the Philippines, what are some like pluses, minuses from a cultural nuance standpoint that foreigners need to understand before working with the teams, right? Because it's nothing wrong inherently, but when we want to work together, we need to understand each other, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think like in any culture or in anything, like everything which is the good things can sometimes also become negative, So Filipinos are inherently very friendly, very warm. But then what's the flip side to that? That they don't necessarily want to confront you. They don't necessarily want to be the messenger of bad news or of conflict. So I think there's an element of passive aggressivity in the Philippines. So they might not tell you if there is a problem, or they might disagree actually with your instructions and don't think that's the best way to do something, but not speak up and say it. So there is an element of having to learn how to work within the Philippine culture and maybe also sometimes read those cues, or learn also how to like dig deeper, like ask a few more questions to clarify. Like, are you just saying yes because you want to make me happy, or are you saying yes because you agree? So we try to explain this and to help with this. It's not always easy. I think the biggest cultural shock between Philippines and outside is with some, not everybody, but some American companies, because obviously in America you also, not everywhere, but I think in 20 plus states you have employment at will, so you can actually fire somebody right now, right here. That doesn't work in the Philippines. So that's business chain differences and cultural differences that sometimes we need to work in bridging. And it doesn't always make it easy, because then also that Filipino passive aggressivity leaves them hanging. They decline. They're like, I don't understand what's going on. Why are they not telling me? Like, just tell me. Then the Filipinos like, no, don't want to tell you, I don't want the conflict, or I don't want the heat, or I don't want to be in a team meeting, be the one speaking up, or be the one, being challenged, So that I guess it's one of the challenges with the way the Filipino culture works.
Okay. What about holidays, those kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a Filipino culture.
In KL, like in Malaysia, there are tons of holidays, right? We had to sit down with my team to kind of like iron out, like, okay, these are the holidays we'll agree, these are the holidays we'll not, because there are so many. Right? So just want to understand, like, how does it work in the Philippines?
I actually don't know how we compare to KL or to Malaysia, but I know that the Philippines is one of the countries with the largest amount of public holidays. I think, as I mentioned before we started this, I believe, this is an assumption, that it is a compensation by the government for the limited amount of mandatory leaves. I think the minimum is 5 days that needs to be done by law, if I'm not mistaken. But it's very low. And so I think they're compensating with like 18 or 20 public holidays, because otherwise people don't have enough leave. That's my guess. But yes, holidays are an issue, and sometimes clients get surprised. I mean, I think Germany has like 11 or 12. But surprisingly, the holidays are not the biggest problem. That's sometimes there's some grumbling, like, again, you have another holiday, but holidays are holidays. And I think everybody enjoys holidays.
Okay, fair. So then all is well, everything will be great, right? But if when things are not so well, you want to let someone go, how does that look like?
So it's not an employment at will country. It's actually quite protective on labor laws. So let's say you would be my employee and you wouldn't perform. I need to, and you have already been regularized. If you don't perform, then I need to basically evaluate you, tell you haven't performed, and set up a performance improvement plan that we need to like jointly agree on. And then you normally have 30 to 60 days, depending on how we set it up, to really improve your performance. You get evaluated again, and then you either pass and everything is fine, If you don't, I can then execute on the termination. The technical side of it is that we need to work and support our clients to really set up that process and be the HR business partner on the place there. I mean, the clients won't know. The foreign company, the Singaporean company, if they never heard about this, they won't know
That's
about
why they
this.
got to hear about this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the job, in my opinion, of the service provider, in this case, us, to really help not only explain it, but support you through the process.
Yeah. So let's say if prior to confirming the person, right, then I already set a set of KPIs in that confirmation, agreement, right? So, okay, you got to hit all these. If not, then, you're considered to have underperformed, and then, you're terminated, or you will go through this process. Does it make it easier? Because we've already predetermined a set of KPIs.
Yes, and then we will check in with you. You now the employer, we are the employer, but you the client. Hey, how is this person performing? This is what you agreed with this person. We were part of that conversation. How is this person performing? Give me the data. Give me the numbers, so that we keep record. It's all documentation. It's paper, but then it makes it very simple and fast forward or simplified. If you don't have that, then it can really drag on, because we need to then create and agree on them, and then give that person obviously time to execute on those now freshly agreed KPIs. Because you can't tell them, okay, from tomorrow, from now on, you need to do X, Y, Z, and you need to deliver that by next week. That's also not fair, So it's there's a fairness component to that. Yeah.
Okay, fair. But I think, truth be told, some companies, as we grow, some of these things change, right? So
absolutely, and they can be adjusted. But they need to be communicated. Yeah, you can't adjust them and then suddenly throw a curveball and say like, "Well, sorry, I didn't tell you, but we changed your KPIs and you didn't perform." Then again, you will not be allowed to let the person go. Yeah. So if there is adjustments, then that needs to be communicated. Yeah.
Okay. Then is there practices that are commonly accepted? Where, because just a personal anecdote. Yeah, I know one of the biggest, media company in Malaysia. They have like probation period as long as 1 to 2 years, right? Because they don't want to put you on that regular contract. They really want to be super sure that they want you, So, but it's not as common here in Singapore. You don't hear people be on probation for 1 to 2 years, right? So, like, what is the kind of cultural practice in the Philippines?
Yeah, so
on this
like
front?
anybody, people try to always game the system.
Yeah, you always try to work around.
And
right?
I do believe that some companies were trying to do exactly that. Like they would try to extend probation to like an endless amount of time. But I do believe that it wasn't that long ago, there was a Supreme Court ruling limiting it, or some court ruling limiting it. I mean, I think you can do 6 months, and if it's not really working out, but also you're not yet sure, you can extend it by another 3, maybe another 6. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to ask my legal team, but you can't make it endless, and you can't keep rolling it over. There has been they blocked this by now because some companies were taking advantage of that.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Any last things you want to share with our potential employers from Singapore?
No, I mean, listen, I didn't come here for that. I think I personally think there's a beauty in also building diverse teams. I think every different culture can add value to what you do. And you can see this here in Singapore very clearly. There's a lot of Filipinos in Singapore. And I think they add a lot of value to Singapore itself, not just as workers, but also as from a cultural side. At the end of the day, in my opinion, COVID showcased very strongly how distributed teams works, and that it's really something that companies can really benefit from. I think it's here to stay, and it's more about how do different companies experiment with it, enable themselves with it, and use it in a way that really adds value to their business, to whatever they're doing, whatever they're trying to grow or service.
Fair. Okay, so if our audience would like to connect with you, where is the best place to go?
My LinkedIn or my webpage. Penbrothers would be one, or my name, Nicolas Bivero at LinkedIn. Yeah, so you will find me under that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I think Nick went quite far. Right. There's a lot more nuance to the discussion as compared to the many previous remote team type of stuff that we have done. So I appreciate that. Okay. And I hope you enjoy yourself. I think it's quite an interesting episode. And like it or not, I think for a lot of businesses to stay relevant, a wider, org chart that encapsulate different people from the region. It's quite important for a lot of smaller enterprises, especially, right? Because the big boys already have the plan, right? But I think for smaller companies, you want to stay relevant. I think inevitably this is the part that we need to do, but we want to do it ethically and in a way that everybody can accept. Okay, so with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you have not, place your email in our website. Go to thefinancialcoconut.com, put your email there so you get updated on the latest episodes, or latest events, or latest things we're doing, so that we can, not compete with the algorithm. Yeah, I want to reach you directly. It's very tiring competing with the algorithm. So with that, thank you. We'll see you in the next episode of TFC Business Show. Meanwhile, take care. Bye-bye.